Funding for Minnesota Legacy programs are provided by a grant from the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008, and by the members of Prairie Public.
Hello and welcome to Prairie Pulse. Coming up a little bit later in the show, we'll take a look at Otter Tail County's 150th birthday celebration. But first, joining me now is the, fairly new Executive Director of North Dakota Council on the Arts, Kim Conoco. Kim, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And welcome to this region. You're fairly new. Tell the folks a little about yourself, your background, maybe where you're originally from.
Well, I grew up in Michigan, and my dad was a pedodontist, a children's dentist by day, and then at nighttime he was president of the Chamber Music Society of Detroit. And my mom was a docent at the Detroit Institute of the Arts for over 30 years. So we grew up with a lot of art and music and culture in the house and around. We traveled a lot and just had some wonderful experiences, and I think that set me on the path to kind of getting involved in the arts. And I have been involved in the arts, mostly nonprofit, for my entire career. I took 1 year off to work at a catering company, and we ended up working with artists who served as waiters and cooks. So never left me.
Well, so much for my follow-up, what got you involved in this, so that takes care of that. Kim, what is North Dakota Council on the Arts, and what do arts councils do for states?
So every state has an arts council or arts agency, and there is actually only one of the whole union it's a nonprofit 501c3. Others are government agencies, part of the state government, and their goal is to really highlight, as is ours, highlight and champion the arts within our state. And we do that through a variety of grant programs which constituents do need to apply for. But the programs are in education, in folklore and culture and heritage. We also do professional development grants, and we do institutional support for some of the larger organizations that exist in North Dakota, and work with very, very small groups as well. And usually that's through special projects or community development grants. So we're really trying to, within the whole state, conjoin the arts and the culture with our heritage and throughout the state for everyone to enjoy and learn from.
Sure. Well, can you talk about the kind of work you did in your previous job? Of course, you came here from Utah.
I did. I came from southern Utah, Zion National Park area, and that's been for me an interesting change, because now I can actually see the entire horizon versus having the sun reflected on red rocks. It's a very different topography. But while I was there, I was doing a variety of different projects. One of the most important projects that I was involved in is working with the Washington County Arts Council, so a local agency versus a state level. And in the 7 years that I was there, we set out to put together a RAP tax, which is recreation, arts, and parks, and that's 0.1% of sales that will go back into the arts community. And that was an amazing project. It allowed me to really get involved in rural Utah and in southern Utah in particular, and it kind of was the start of work with political bodies, being the county government there. And that was an amazing project, and we passed at the poll by only a slight margin. And it was interesting because we had to push so hard to make that happen. And now I know that the program is just running like gangbusters, and there is enough money to help support a lot of different organizations throughout the county. I went there as the executive director of the MESA, which was an artist residency program. I'm really interested in the creative process itself. So that's where art gets made. And it's just an exciting, wonderful process. And then I did a lot of consulting work, a lot with smaller arts organizations and individual artists, always trying to help them get to the next level.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like, yeah, you had something going there. So what made you and what prepared you to make this move, and why did you make the move?
Well, I feel that I have a wide skill set. So for me, it was really important to kind of utilize all my skills in one job. I wasn't and am not interested in working for one artistic voice and for one discipline. I really like the idea of being able to kind of work with the whole and spread and see how things work together. And I came because it was time for a big change. I'd been in Utah for 18 years and had a family, and we separated, and it was kind of just the time to make a move and really invest in a new kind of job where I could really become a champion for the arts in a specific community. And North Dakota kind of picked me. I can't say it was on my radar. And I remember flying in for my interview and thinking, it's white, it's flat, and looking at the Capitol and thinking, wow. So here I am.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people have had that same attitude and stay for many, many years. So as you've come in and relatively new, what kinds of programs are you interested in developing for North Dakota?
Well, we're doing a lot of work right now, at least currently, with the Governor's Main Street Initiative. And I think that looking at healthy, vibrant communities, I think that the arts are definitely a part of that. I think that we're at the table, we need to be at the table, and I think we need to kind of look at the smaller communities in North Dakota and make sure that arts are involved in community development and economic development. I'm interested in providing more professional development to our artists and arts organizations, a little bit more on how to talk about the work that they do, how to really express what they do and be proud of the work they do. When I did my first interview with Prairie Public, I was asked what I thought about the artists in the state, and my immediate answer was, do good work and put your head down. And I know that that is an upper Midwest kind of a quality, and I don't want people to start to boast, but I would like them to take pride in the work that they're doing and start to share it, because I think that as we strengthen as a body of artists, that indeed affects the communities that we live in and potentially the legislators at home, and can work with creating new partnerships.
People were like, how are you an artist in North Dakota and making it too? And I said, well, I was in Chicago for a while and doing that, but ultimately you're just in your studio creating, right? And I was sending my work all over the country anyway. But I'm pretty stoked about my art. Sometimes I'm like, damn, I'm so good.
How about the task you talked about dealing with government a little bit in your past, and now in North Dakota, what about dealing with the legislature that some say hasn't been arts friendly, so to speak, in terms of funding?
So my first experience will be January when I go before the legislature, and I would say that I have heard that they are not necessarily arts friendly, and I think that Probably one of the reasons is that we kind of come to them at a certain point in the process, and we start to defend ourselves and talk about our value. And I don't think that that's often enough. So for me, I'm working with both myself, my constituents, and my board to get out and meet the legislators in their hometowns now, work with them in advance, really talk about not necessarily the value or importance, but really get to know them as people and talk about what's going on in their community and be able to show them the arts organizations or arts and education programs that exist in their communities that they can take part in. So I'm just preparing. I'm trying to stay calm, again, build relationships, and I feel like we're critical in the scheme of things. Arts are, and in the evolving culture. So we're just gonna work it.
Well, with that said, maybe you can get a little more specific. Just why are the arts important to our society?
Well, I feel that they represent who we are and what we are. I feel that they are critical in the advancement of culture. I feel that the arts and also the humanities are what's left when cultures tend to disappear or fade due to whatever circumstances. And I feel like they're just there is within artists. I think that there is a real desire to let loose this inner energy and artistic vision, that there is something to say, and some don't say it well, and some do, and there's such a diversity of ways to say it. But I don't think it would be a very pleasant society without arts.
So with all that, it's been a short time thus far, and so, but how has the transition been going?
I think generally very good. People here are super friendly, very welcoming. It was a change at a point in my life where I think it's often harder to make new friends, and I'm Our Lady of Impatience, so I kind of want that to happen right away. But I feel like this is home. I feel like this is home, and I did just purchase a real house of my own, so I guess I'm staying for a while.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
Well, let's now turn to some of your, I guess you've done some past teaching. So
I have.
Can you talk about some of that?
Sure, I love to teach. I did a little bit of subbing in the schools, and I pretty much said to them, nothing after 4th grade till high school. I didn't want that middle group. But my favorite group to teach to is actually in college or adults, because of the way you can have conversations with them and exchange information and get really just get into more of the meat of it. And I've really focused on arts administration. So with that, trying to match the left side of the brain with the right side of the brain. Most artists have a lot of trouble conjoining the two. But I feel like it's very important for them to incorporate business skills into their creative process. So if you set aside a certain amount of hours for research and rehearsal and choosing partners and creating a show, you should be able to take some of that knowledge and turn it to the business skills of how do you do your website, how do you talk about yourself, how do you fundraise, how do you work on building relationships. I'm really interested in a holistic view of utilizing resources that you already have and building on those, expanding on partnerships in particular, and being realistic about where you are in your career. But it's all about getting to the next step, and that's really what I focused on.
How about working with smaller communities in arts funding? I kind of understand maybe this is a specialty of yours.
I really believe that there are arts in every community. whether the town has 50 people or 500 people or 3,000 or 30. There's arts happening. So whether it's part of a cultural heritage, like it may be with Norwegian or Ukrainian or different traditions that come being passed down, or that there is a craftsperson or a painter who is living in a beautiful place, or theater people who say, hey, let's get together and let's do a show. I think that art exists. So I think the idea is to have it, again, come to the table where there is a community development, a chamber of commerce, a mayor, just really to kind of not work in little cubby holes, but try to open those doors and connect with people and be good arts citizens. So I think that anywhere there is art happening, and we have to kind of just boost it a little.
Mm-hmm. Are you doing any kind of special touring or meetings around the state?
I am.
What are you doing?
So with the Main Street Initiative, I'm working with the governor's office, and he's going on some listening tours around the state and talking to many communities along with the Attorney General. And so with them, I've been to Dickinson and I'm going to Williston. And then on my own, I've done Devil's Lake, Grand Forks, Fargo. I've been down to Lidgerwood, and I'm going tomorrow to Wahpeton. And everyone has been super about setting up meet and greets and kind of gathering the cultural community together to meet and just really learn what's happening in those communities so that it can help me to plan for what the council goals are in terms of our programs and how we reach them and work with them.
So speaking of that, what will be your priorities as you go into the legislative session in January?
Not being defensive. I think that's really important. And really looking at, for us, some strategic moves that will help the council be strong and work better with our constituents. So I feel that we have a tendency to kind of be in Bismarck, and there we are. I think it's very important for us to get out. So looking towards travel budget, looking towards not necessarily new programs at this particular point, but thinking about them all the time, but really kind of taking this first year in particular to kind of assess what's going on and really make sure that our offerings are strong and are having an effect, and that we can expand from there. I think that we are really interested in professional development and championing the arts. So a lot of work on marketing, a lot of work on accessibility, a lot of work on expanding where we can, in particular in arts and education and in cultural heritage programs.
So can you tell me how artists or organizations can apply for grants through the council?
Well, I'd love to say it was easy, but it's not.
Okay.
We have an online system called GoSmart, and it is a little complicated to get through the first few pages because that's where we collect a lot of data. And data has its place and is absolutely incredibly important. We're funded by the legislature and by the National Endowment for the Arts. So the two together, for the NEA in particular, we have to collect this data. And it helps them to give more grants in the future. So if you can get past the first 2 pages, then it's really about your project. What we always tell people who are interested is to call us, because we have the best staff in the world, and they are very, very well versed in our programs and incredibly helpful. Incredibly wonderful people. So
Kim, we're running out of time, but real briefly, do you have any upcoming events or an event you'd like to talk about for this summer?
You know, we've got a wonderful teacher training program that's happening through our Arts and Education program, and that's really a great one. In fact, I think we're almost completely full up on registration. So that's going on, and basically working on my budget, the legislature, and thinking about the future.
Okay. With that said, though, if people want more information, where's the best place for them to go?
Start at the website or give us a call. You can't ask me for the phone number because I haven't memorized it yet. 701-328. That's all I remember.
Well, you got it started, but Kim, we're out of time. But
right.
Good luck to you, and
Thank you
welcome
so much.
to North Dakota. And thanks you for joining us today.
Appreciate being here.
Stay tuned for more. Otter Tail County, Minnesota is celebrating its 150th birthday in 2018. The county has a rich and diverse history and some surprising things it can boast about, some not known by the general public. Recently, we paid a visit to the Otter Tail County Museum in Fergus Falls to explore their 150th birthday exhibit on display and to learn more about the county.
Otter Tail County was named for the land formation that exists where the Otter Tail River enters Otter Tail Lake. And to the native peoples, they felt as though that looked like the tail of an otter. This is our 150th, so we wanted to make this exhibit big, just like the county. All the exhibits that we do here at the Otter Tail County Historical Society start about a year and a half in advance. Of course, we knew this anniversary was going to be coming even 10 years ago. So this was already in our minds. We have an amazing collection. We probably own over 60,000 photographs. We have a lot to choose from, and so what you're going to see when you visit is just some really remarkable photographs from our collection. We do have somebody that we think is quite famous that most people will recognize, Karen Nyberg, who is an astronaut who has actually taken photographs of the county from space, which is pretty awesome. And we were able to get her permission to include 2 of her images in this exhibit.
Otter Tail County was officially formed 150 years ago, September 1868, when county commissioners held their first meeting at the home of Marcus Shaw in Clitheroe. The first permanent settlement, Clitheroe, got started just before the Civil War, when a group of Cutlerites from Iowa, southwestern Iowa, journeyed north. Their leader, Alpheus Cutler, said that he envisioned a land between 2 lakes in Minnesota. So if you can imagine, how would you find a land between 2 lakes in Minnesota based on a vision? Where would you go? So they ended up, in Otter Tail County, between West Battle Lake and Clitheroe Lake, and that's where the Cutlerites formed. And they took 4 homesteads, and that became the first permanent settlement. The Cutlerites, of course, being a offshoot, a splinter group from the Church of the Latter-day Saints, or the Mormons.
One of the things that people just love when they see this exhibit, and something that I really love, are maps. And so we've taken our first map of Otter Tail County plat book. It's from 1884, and we've used that to show a lot of the lost towns, the towns that no longer exist in the county. Of course, you can also see landowners, and people just love to see their name. That has been really, really popular.
Geographically, Otter Tail County is 8th largest in the state of Minnesota.
2nd largest county as far as organized townships. We have 62, just following the large county of St. Louis in number of townships organized.
And politically, from the very early days, there were arguments on where the county seat should be located. Fergus Falls became the county seat in 1872. The initial county seat was located in Otter Tail City, but then when the railroad bypassed Otter Tail City to go north to Perham, there was a vote to move the county seat from Otter Tail to Fergus Falls.
This county is just amazing.
We have a unique mix of prairie, woodland, lots of lakes.
There's actually 1,048 lakes in Otter Tail County, We have the most lakes in the United States, actually.
And several rivers.
One of the things that I think is kind of unique is our rivers. The water will end up in Canada, and some will end up in the Gulf of Mexico.
So it became an ideal spot for people to come to Otter Tail County. Native Americans have been here for thousands of years. Otter Tail County was settled after the Civil War, that great push westward. And so we were part of that movement. Lots of Norwegians, lots of Swedes, Finns, Germans, and of course most recently Mexican Americans, Bosnians, Southeast Asians, and they all came here basically for the same reason, which is to find work and a better life.
Well, that's all we have on Prairie Pulse for this week, but as always, thanks for watching.
Funding for Minnesota Legacy programs are provided by a grant from the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008, and by the members of Prairie Public.